Colin Solster here, bringing you a tutorial on how to edit in Adobe Lightroom 4. Colin Solster here, and Colin Solster here, and today we're going to be Colin Solster here, and in today's video we are going to be showing you how to edit in Adobe Lightroom 4. Starting with this original raw file here, we're going to show you how to edit something from this into something more like this. Now if you take a look at the before and after, you can tell that there has been some white balance changes and some split toning added, and all of that was used here in Adobe Lightroom 4.3 with all of these basic adjustments right here. Now starting with our edit, we're going to reset our picture and we're going to start over. Now the first thing that I do with every image is I adjust the white balance. Yesterday at the beach I was taking some pictures, and this happens to be my friend Eric, and the white balance was set to daylight, but as the sun was setting, the white balance kept getting colder and colder. So we need to readjust this. We'd adjust this to shade. Since I have nothing to go off of, that's about my best bet. So then after that, we're going to take a look at our histogram to check out our exposure. And as you can see over here on the right, you can tell that it's a little bit underexposed. So I'm going to bump up the exposure just a little bit there to get it back to the right area. And then I'm going to start off with our basic adjustments with our blacks and our whites and our shadows and highlights. And if you are a PC user, you can hit the Alt key. If it's a Mac, I believe you can hit Command. And as you do that, you hold it down while you slide these little sliders here. And to get the correct exposure for your blacks, you're gonna slide them to where you just see a few pixels on the screen. Then you're gonna go through and you're gonna do the same thing with your whites, with your shadows, and with your highlights. Usually the highlights you need to bring down a lot. Alright, so that's set correctly. The next thing up here to do is to set our contrast, and right now you can tell the contrast is pretty high. So we're going to bring that down, and we're going to slowly bring it up until it starts to look good. And I'd say about -40 would be right in that range. We can always adjust it later. And then after I'm done with that, I usually set a clarity of 30 to every image and a vibrance of 7. The vibrance really doesn't matter because once we switch to black and white, that'll go away anyway. The next thing, we'll move down here into our detail. Up here you can tell I shot this in ISO 800 at 1.8. And if you zoom in here, we can see there's a lot of grain in this image. So we're going to bump up our luminance. And what I did earlier was I brought it up to about 40, I think, and then brought up the detail a little. And that looks pretty good. Then we're going to go down to lens corrections, enable the profile for our lens. This particular lens is a Canon EF 85mm 1.8. So you usually the lens profile won't come up on here, so you need to go through and select your make, and usually it'll pop up with your model and stuff, but if it's not there, you have the whole Canon line up here to choose from. And then you can go through with your color, and I always check the remove chromatic aberration because nobody wants that going on in their images. And then next up in the manual, you can actually straighten out our image. If you check the constrain crop, that'll keep our image in the correct proportions. And then I know for a fact that this wire here is perfectly straight. So I'm going to rotate my image just a little bit so I can get that lined up correctly. Then we'll close that. Then we'll go back up here and we're going to hit the black and white. And when you go in here, you can adjust the level of all of these particular colors. Now what I usually do to get a sense of feel for what the color is going to affect in the image itself, I go through and I go all the way to the left and all the way to the right, and you can tell up here in the neck and up here, or down here, my bad, down here on this little post, you can tell that it's affecting that because I guess there's some red light in there. So it looks like I'm going to want to bring this up to get a little bit of light there on his neck, and I'm going to bring it up to 20. And normally I don't go past 20 or below -20 because it brings out more grain in the image, and we're trying to reduce that as much as possible. Then we're going to go through for all the other colors. Looks like orange is affecting the neck as well. We'll bring that up to 20. Yellow, all it's affecting are these headlights down here from the cars in the parking lot. So I'm going to leave that at 0. Green, that's doing nothing. I'll leave that at 0 as well. Blue looks like it's affecting the overall exposure of the image, so I'll bring that up to 20 because we want to kind of fill in the shadows here on Eric's shirt and his pants. And then we're going to go through next to blue, and that's really doing a lot for the background, so we'll kind of bring that background down to -20 to make it seem like Eric's lit up a little bit more. And then purple is affecting his skin tone, so we'll bring that up to 20 definitely. And magenta's affecting his lips, it looks like, so we don't want it to look like he's wearing lipstick, so we'll go through and we'll try to match that up the best we can to where it looks natural. So it looks like we're done on there. And then next up we'll go to our split toning. Now whenever I use this effect, I always start off on either the highlights or the shadows. So today we're going to start off with our highlights. So we'll bring the balance all the way to +100. We're going to bump up our saturation of our highlights to 100%, and then we're going to move through our hue to get a feel for what color we're going to use. And for the highlights, the background is really the highlight of the image, so I'm going to make this hue blue just to kind of keep in with the blue of the sky. So I'll bring that to a light blue there. I'll bring down the saturation quite a bit to where we just have a slight blue tint to our image. And then we'll go the other route, go down to our shadows, we'll bump up the saturation there. And for our shadows, I want to have a little orange to the tint, like an orangish yellow. So we'll bring down our saturation again, probably right around there. Then we'll bring our balance and adjust this to how we want it. We want it a little bit more orange. Kind of makes it look a little vintage. So that looks pretty good to me. Bring down our toning, and then next up we are going to zoom in on his sunglasses here. And as you can tell, you know, it's pretty grainy in here, and his eyes, it looks like maybe one's open, maybe this one's closed, I can't really tell. So we'll go to our adjustment brush and we'll bump up our exposure all the way to where we can get a sense of what we're doing here. And then I will paint in light in his lenses. Let me zoom in here to get a better sense of feel for what I'm doing. Alright, we'll start painting in the light. And then after we paint in all of this, we will go through and we will darken his sunglasses to where you can't really see his eyes anymore, and it'll bring down the grain as well. So we'll just do a rough paint in here for the sake of the video and sake of time. And as we're doing this, we can talk about really when you're doing portraits like this, you know, I kind of just shot this in the moment. I really wasn't, you know, going for a good image here. I was just using my my camera kind of like as a point and shoot. I shot this image on the Canon 1100D, otherwise known as the T3. I don't know. Usually, I don't know, if you were going to do some portraits here, we had the sun was in front of him, so that was about as much light as we could get to fill in his face and his body. You know, if you have a strobe or a speed light or something like that, it'd be nice to use that in a situation like that where you can get a better lighting on your subject. And then, in case you didn't notice how I just did that, you can actually erase what you just painted in by holding the Alt and moving around like this, and then you can just fill that back in regular. So we're going to zoom out here. Let's zoom out 2x1, and then we will bring these to the center, bring our exposure back to 0. Let's bring our highlights down all the way. Let's bump up our contrast, and then we'll bring down our shadows. Alright, let's lower our contrast actually. Bring down those shadows a little bit more. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Let's fit this back to the screen. Then we're going to be done with that. And then the next step for what I did with this image is I actually cropped it post. It's kind of like a highly debated thing with photographers. A lot of them really don't like cropping their images. And, you know, if you get it right the first time, you know, good for you. You know, if you didn't and you were just, you know, kind of snapping pictures and you really found a picture that you loved and you would like to get it just as perfect as you possibly can, I would go through and use a post crop here. So we'll be done with that. And then the last thing I did was I went into effects and I added a post crop vignette. I'll bring this, let's bring this as wide as we can. Let's start adjusting our midpoint here. Then around this, we'll make it, yeah, about like that, more oblong instead of circular. And then we'll feather it just slightly there. Alright, so then bring this up. It'll be just a little bright in the corners, just to kind of give it that vintage effect. And then if we look at our before and after, here we have it. You know, it's really simple and easy to use. Adobe did a great job creating this, and I haven't had the chance to use Lightroom 5 yet, but if I ever do get that program, I'm sure they've done a lot better of job at making it easy for you to edit. So that wraps up this tutorial. Stay tuned, subscribe below, and look forward to some more tutorials coming up. And thank you for watching.